All right, guys, fire away. How's it going? Y'all good? Good. Weather's kind of crazy. We had 15 or 14 really good days of weather, and today was the only bad day.
You guys feel like you got everything you wanted to accomplish through these 15 practices?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not everything, but I think we made some big strides. I mean, I think we needed to obviously introducing a new system and a style of play offensively. We needed to get on the grass and be able to, to see it come to fruition. So it was good. I mean, there were some good and bad, some pluses and minuses about everything that happened in the 15 practices. But I think for the most part, we stayed healthy. A couple of injuries here and there, but I don't think there's going to be anything, substantial. We'll know for sure soon. But yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, I thought we were physical on both sides of the ball. Obviously, we needed to be able to improve our run game. I think we made some strides in that direction. Needed to be able to improve our run defense. I think we made some strides in that direction. And then was really pleased with some of the things we've done in the secondary. I felt like that unit just really is playing with a lot of confidence and really playing at a high level right now. So I feel great about that. So, we had everybody coming back for the most part up front defensively. A lot of returning experience on the offensive line as well. Going to still be some moving pieces to try to get the best five on the field. But again, like what I saw, thought we made some progress. Obviously, I thought the quarterbacks all did some good things. And it was good to see.
A couple weeks ago, you mentioned Matt as a guy that took the lead. Was there any other players that you thought?
Say it again.
A couple weeks ago, you mentioned Matt as being a guy.
Yeah.
That took the lead. Were there any other
Yeah. I mean, I think Jamel has really kind of grown into being one of those guys I think we can count on. Excited about him. Ansel is another one. I think Ansel's, guys love him. He's got a great personality. Works incredibly hard, very mature. Just one of those guys that's a natural leader. Offensively, that's going to have to develop for us over the summer. We've got a lot of candidates that we feel good about from a leadership standpoint, but those guys have just got to continue to grow and get a little bit older. There's obviously some guys up front that can do it. I think as the quarterback thing gets settled in, I think all those guys possess leadership qualities, and I think Jaden will be more comfortable in that role now that he's been here and knows the players, and those guys know him and appreciate his work ethic and his mature approach, and the fact that he came in and wanted to be a great teammate. So yeah, I think it's good. I feel good about the group. Want to see those leaders emerge, and I think that I talked to the team after practice and just about the importance of June and July. I think that's going to be incredibly important for our program. It's just continuing to build off what we accomplished in spring football. They're going to get a little break. These guys, we've been grinding them pretty good. They deserve a break. We'll have about 2 more weeks of strength and conditioning, then a dead week finals, and then they'll get a couple of weeks to go home and recharge the battery a little bit, and then it's full speed ahead. So, like where we are, love the mature approach with this team. There wasn't a lot of nonsense or anything this spring. I mean, the guys just came to work every day, showed up, worked hard, and I like the blue-collar attitude and approach of this team. Like the maturity, as you said, I do think we've got to have some leaders emerge, though, particularly on the offensive side of the ball.
Is there maybe one position group that you kind of walk away significant, just feeling more impressed with?
Yeah, I think the corners. I think we've made big strides at corner. I just feel like our guys have more tools in their tool belt than they've had. I think they're playing with more confidence, playing physical. Like the room. I think it's going to be a competitive room. A couple of the new additions I think have helped us in terms of making it more competitive. Had some returners that got some valuable experience next year that took the next step this spring. So feel good about it.
When you talk about Jaden's leadership and just becoming a good teammate, on the field, what was kind of your analysis of how he performed this spring?
Yeah, good. Thought he got off to a really good start. And I think it's just his preparation allowed him to do that. He knew what to do knew how he was supposed to do it, got more reps as camp went on, or as spring training went on. I think he just got more comfortable. I think that, the big challenge for us moving forward is going to be, figuring out, okay, here's what we're good at, here's what we're going to major in, and being great at some things when it comes to our passing game. I think we're good at a lot of stuff. I think we need to become great at some concepts and get really narrowed down and focused on what he likes and what we like. And that's really what the next 6 weeks will be about, is for us sitting down as a coaching staff and saying, okay, look, here's what we did in the spring. Here, we tried this, we tried that, we tried this, and this is what's gonna, what we're gonna need to be able to do to win. And so, getting narrowed in and focused in and getting great at executing, I think is gonna be critical for us.
Really impressed with the way the O-line moved, especially in the running game. How well does Gordy's scheme kind of mesh with like the personnel?
Yeah, it's been good. I think it fits our guys. We've got some athletic linemen that can move. So I think it makes sense. I really do. I think that was one of the things that we when I needed to make a decision on a coordinator, one of the things that I didn't want to bring in a square peg, and so try to fit it into a round hole. And so we thought, okay, our guys are athletic. We've got, these kind of young athletic tackles. We have some bigger guys in interior that can move. This is something that I think they can do. And then as we got a little further down the road and started talking to Gordy specifically, then, started to make a lot of sense, and he's looked at our people a little bit and said, yeah, I think I can do this with these guys. And I think they picked it up quickly. I think we were further ahead, honestly, right now than I thought we would be, particularly in the run game. But a lot of work to do. I mean, there's still tons and tons and tons of work. But I'm happy with the progress that we made in the spring. I think it fits Jeremy Payne as well. His ability to be able to cut, stick his toe in the ground, and get vertical, I think makes sense. And then we wanted to get a little bit bigger at running back as well, and had some new additions in that department, and like what those guys did. So excited about where we're headed.
Saw a lot of production from the tight end room this spring.
Yep.
What's kind of just been your thoughts on them as a whole?
Good. I think it's one of the stronger position groups on our team, especially when we get everybody healthy. Lafayette and Mason were both a little banged up and didn't finish with those guys, but, KP, I thought, made some huge strides. Nakari, I think, is a very unique, athlete that can do a lot of different things. Like the room. I think it's going to be very, very competitive. Those guys are going to have to battle for playing time. But they all bring a little something different to the table, which I like.
You talk about battling for playing time, linebacker. Coach Wilson's done a really good job getting those guys some reps.
Yep.
And it looks like it's a battle between maybe 3-4 guys to
Yeah.
play alongside Max.
Yeah. I think Max was what we wanted to see from him this spring. I mean, he needed to step up and be a guy that we could count on day in, day out. I think he, for the most part, did that. We're still trying to solidify those positions behind him. We got young talent. I mean, that's what I like. I mean, we have depth, we have talent. We got some bigger guys that I think are going to be good players and can be thumpers. And then, the next spot's going to be a little bit wide open. Short of getting hurt a little bit, I think hurt us just knowing exactly what he can do. But when he came back, I mean, he looked like we hoped he would. Teason's obviously done some good things. He's very athletic. He can run around. And then the combination of some young guys, I think gives us hope that we can, find replacements and guys that can go and play at a really high level. And so love the athleticism of the group. The only negative that you could say about those guys is just experience, but I love the way they move. And as you said, there's going to be a ton of competition for spots and some guys. It's going to be fun to watch those guys emerge, because you could start to see it, middle part of spring football into the end. Those guys started to get a little bit more comfortable, and you started seeing them showing up more, making more plays, playing faster, thinking less. So obviously that'll continue over the summer as we do some of the OTAs and some of the things, and those guys get in there and watch more tape and learn the intricacies of the defense. I think it'll help them, and and then we're going to have a great, as I said, June and July. Make sure those guys are dialed in and ready to go when we start fall camp.
What did you see from some of the other safeties at those other two positions alongside this spring?
Well, guys have made some plays. I was encouraged by that. That's kind of what we need. Bud's been a guy that's done that for us, and so we just needed a guy that could make plays. That could play confident. Have a knack for getting in there and making plays. And I thought all the guys, for the most part, did a pretty good job of that.
Coach, you guys shored up Coach Avalos for another 3 years.
Yeah. No, that was
Talk about
big.
that.
Yeah. Just excited to have Andy. I mean, I think we share a vision for what we want our program to look like. And he's obviously, I think, one of the top defensive coaches in college football. He does a tremendous job of leading that group, both the coaches and players. Nobody works harder. Nobody takes more pride in their performance than he does. We're just aligned in a lot of ways. He's got a great family, just a super guy that's really dedicated to, developing the players and seeing those guys reach their potential. So excited about him and, what he means to this program and looking forward to working with him.
Getting Andy back, does that kind of just allow you to have more time this spring to focus on the offense a little bit more?
Yeah, for me, that's kind of where my focus normally is, for the most part. But yeah, I mean, when you got a guy that can handle it, then it frees you up. It allows you to not have to sit back there and start looking and going, what about this? What about that? How are we going to adjust to this? I mean, he's got a plan. He's got a system. He knows exactly what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. Does a great job teaching fundamentals. And so that does give me an opportunity to focus, especially with implementing a new system, more time over there. And, I like what I've seen. I like what I've seen of the offense. I think it makes sense. I think there's going to be a very fundamental approach, which I believe in. And now I think we just have to master the basics. And I think if we can master the basics, then, we'll get these guys to play at a high level. And, it's going to be about minimizing mistakes and taking care of the football and execute at a high level.
Coach, I was telling Terry Shelton this morning, compared to last year, he looks completely different this time last year to last spring. Is there any player that you could think of top of your head that from last spring to this past spring that has just
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple guys. Wes Harvey comes to mind. Terry comes to mind. I think Ben Whitfield is a lot different, even though he's an older guy. Been in the program for a while. There's a couple of guys that Vernon Glover is a lot different than he was. Just confident and mature. Jamel, I think is the same thing. I mean, Jamel is just a different guy right now. He's just got a purpose. Max, Paul. A lot of guys to me have started to take that next step. Which is what you want to see and what we need. But yeah, just Gil Jackson for sure. I mean, Gil was kind of the same way, kind of a gangly guy. And like Terry was, and he's gotten bigger and stronger and confident, and so it's fun to watch those guys develop, and because they're both long, athletic dudes that can make plays, and so it's fun to see those guys start to figure it out. All right, man. Okay.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you guys. See y'all when I see you.
You get to do OTAs and all that, right? Now in the
June.
summer?
Yeah, June.
June.
Y'all ready? Vernon, we were just talking to Sonny. He said he felt like the cornerbacks maybe were the position that maybe had the strongest spring camp this year. I mean, how do you think the corners did so far?
I feel like we did real well. Like he said, Gil, he looked way better. I feel like I worked on some things I need to work at, but I feel like we're more confident. We're just playing, so I feel like the group looking real good, smooth.
You guys had a couple new guys with Kalen and Tion. How much did having those guys push you competition-wise to get better?
They push me a lot. We push each other a lot. They coming from different places, so they know some things I don't. I know some things they don't, so it's real good to push each other.
So maybe one thing from this beginning of spring camp that has impressed you or that you didn't think would impress you at the beginning that now you feel like you want.
About myself?
Yeah.
I feel like I can guard anybody. I can play anywhere, inside, outside. Really just that confidence thing and like working back from my injury and stuff, like just getting back to myself. That was a big major thing for me this spring.
How's it been learning from Coach Ward so far?
It's been real good. Coach Boy, he a wise guy. He been in the game a long time. Great experience. I like Coach Boy. We got a great relationship. So yeah.
How much do you feel like your leadership has grown? I know when y'all had a player-led practice in the offseason, you were leading the drills. How much do you feel like your leadership's grown?
Honestly, I feel like God just blessed me with a leadership role. Like ever since I grew up, I just always been able to like corral guys and make them just, you know what I'm saying, go and encourage them. So I feel like it's just matured a lot over the years.
Great to see a lot of this offense over the spring, which just kind of been your takeaways of what develops.
I like the offense. It's a smart offense. I like Coach Sampson, how he runs the offense. QB1, he's just very smart with the football. Jeremy Payne looking good. Receivers looking good. So O-line looking good. So yeah.
What's going to be the biggest thing you focus on as you guys get ready for fall camp and all?
My biggest thing, just being a leader, being available for my guys mentally and physically on the field. Really, that's the biggest thing for me.
When we watch this defense, it looks fast. You guys look confident, comfortable. How much is being in this system for the third year in a row and having Coach Avalos around still helping you guys?
It's been real well. All of us comfortable. We're continuing to grow our relationships. All of us coaches, players. So I feel like we're just comfortable now, just having fun playing football.
Thanks, Vernon.
Appreciate y'all.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Give us your practice analysis.
we got a few problems here that I got to talk about. If I gave my
Everyone ready? Jade, you made it through 15 practices. Just kind of talk about your experience for spring camp.
Yeah, just adjusting to the speed here, learning a new playbook, getting familiar with my teammates, and starting to build those relationships. And it's all been going really well.
How was it just going up against TCU's defense during the spring?
Yeah, I mean they throw a lot at you, tons of different looks, coverages, stuff like that. So it's definitely something I can learn from day in and day out, and so it's a big challenge. So I'm thankful that they are as good as they are because it'll get me that much more ready for the season.
You talked about day one about getting a little bit of time in the offense before you start having your input. Do you feel like now you have a little bit of input into what's being called and ran?
Yeah, I would say so. We've had a couple, call it scripts, stuff like that, and they ask for our input on those and plays we do and don't like, certain situations like that. So we've definitely gotten to the place where we're all comfortable with the offense and feel like we can start making some of those calls on what things we like and don't.
What is the thing you feel like you have to improve on the most?
I would say just taking these June and July, those months to really start leading these guys. I feel like you got to earn your respect, through your work and stuff. And I feel like I've done that so far, so I can take that next step and being more vocal and really just getting the guys together and focusing on the details.
So when we were talking to some of the guys, they talked about your leadership style. It seemed like they appreciated you didn't automatically come in as like a rah-rah guy out top. I guess what was your approach to how you wanted to approach leadership when you first got here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you have to show, your certain, work ethic, you have to show something before you can say something. And I feel like I've gotten to the point where I have, we have 15 practices down, I've done a really good job, I feel like, and now I can start, being more vocal, but I feel like you just have to earn respect first before you can start making those calls because, it won't mean much from a guy they haven't seen anything from.
I know Sonny talked about seeing improvement from the running back room this spring, but what have just kind of been your relationship with them, and what have you seen from them as they progress?
Yeah, I mean, they've all gotten so much better. Just again, I think it's just all comfortability with the offense. And in terms of, protections and, their assignments, I feel like they've gotten so much better. And it's such a deep room, so talented. And we even got one hurt right now I've heard great things about. So, I mean, it's just an exciting group of guys that, I have next to me in the backfield and proud of their growth this spring.
Go ahead, Scott.
How has your comfort level gotten through spring?
Definitely more comfortable now. I feel like in every aspect, in terms of the offense, in terms of, the locker room. I feel like the start of spring, it was just, let me just do my job and focus on me and, just get better every day. But now I'm at a point where I feel like I'm really comfortable and have a lot of relationships and, I know the offense. I feel like, my comfort level has grown massively.
How's it been learning from Coach Samus?
I mean, he's a really good coach, and I think the main thing is he wants to get, everybody, like everything out of everybody. So he pours into everybody, his door is always open if you ever have any questions. And, yeah, I mean, he's a really good coach, so it's good to learn from him.
What are your thoughts on how the O-line did during spring?
Really good. I mean, for everybody, it's not just as simple as blocking. So it's like, it's a whole new system and they have new responsibilities and stuff like that. So I think everybody has gotten to a point where they've, they finally know what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it. And I think those guys adjusted really well to the new offense and, the things we're doing, both in the run and pass game.
You utilize the tight end room a lot this spring, which has kind of been your thoughts on them.
I mean, just a big range, they're fast, can run routes and can block. They can do it all, each and every one of them. So it's really, really exciting to be around a group like that. And to see them also, just progress throughout the spring has been cool because, I feel like each and every single one of them has made, drastic improvements.
Every position group we've talked to on offense has said, Coach Samus says, if you don't block, you better embrace it or you won't play. What does he tell the quarterbacks? What's his message to you guys? What you guys better do?
We better take care of the ball, not put it in jeopardy. And I feel like turnovers is his main thing, just taking care of it and just being a leader naturally.
Easy peasy, right? Why'd you bring this weather from Massachusetts down here today, man?